The Captain Class by Sam Walker. Boston Celtics, the American basketball team, is the most capped team in the history of the American Basketball League. The Boston Celtics team didn't win any titles until 1956. In this year, the team signed a contract with a junior player named Bill Russell. After this contract, the Boston Celtics dominated the NBA for a period of 13 years until 1969, during which the team won 11 titles. But once Bill Russell retired after the 1969 season, the team collapsed and didn't win any title for 5 years. We can see this phenomena in many other sports and with many teams, but paradoxically, Bill Russell wasn't a talented player in Boston Celtics, but rather he was the captain of the team. In every team that dominated the sports in an era, it must have a key player who played the role of the leader and the captain of the team. Contrary to the widespread expectation, these players are rarely the most talented players in the team. But on the contrary, they have an average talent and tend to have quiet personalities that avoid the limelight and public appearances. But they have a high capacity for motivation and perseverance at work. In 1979, scientists at Ohio State University conducted a study by observing how people shout loudly when they are alone, compared with being with someone else. The results showed that the level of individuals shouting increased when a third person was added to the experiment. The third person tells the individuals that their partner or teammate has screamed louder. We see this same principle in team sports, when a coach tells his team that they have to make an effort just as the captain does. And for this principle to work in sports, the team must have a hard-working captain, like Carlos Puyol, for example. As being the captain of Barcelona's soccer team in the 2000s, Puyol didn't hesitate to throw himself in front of the ball to save the team from the opportunity of an open goal. Even if his fellow defenders made fatal mistakes, Puyol was so willing to sacrifice his body for his team that he once broke a bone in his cheek while blocking a shot that was on its way to the soccer goal. This kind of determination is a sign of a great leader, and this is the kind of the leader who inspires his team to sacrifice and give everything they have. Bit to remember, sports team leaders are one of the most important reasons for sports team superiority. When people work in a team, they put in less effort than usual, unless they have a strong motivation. In many fields of life, we can see a direct relationship between having a pool of talent and having amazing results. In 2010, a study at the University of Texas showed that the best teams for accomplishing mental tasks are those in which the majority of members have above-average skills. This can be applied to team sports. In fact, the sports teams with the most talent don't necessarily win the largest number of titles and championships. In 2000, Real Madrid did everything possible to attract the best stars in the world in a period called the Galactico season, such as Luis Figo, Zinedine Zidane, Ronaldo, and David Beckham. Contrary to expectations, the team has struggled 3 consecutive seasons without winning any title. The American football coach Vince Lombardi is often mentioned when people discuss the greatest sports coaches in history. Lombardi's motivational skills greatly influenced the dominance of his team, the Green Bay Packers, in the American Football League at that time. It's clear from this that although smart coaches can influence the success of the team, they are not necessarily a condition for success. What history shows us is that even the best coaches still need a great leader to achieve sports success. Jack McHale, who was the coach of the Australian Collingwood Magpies Football Club, had an incredibly influential and motivating personality, yet the team couldn't achieve championships until he signed a contract with a new captain named Sid Coventry in 1927. Jack McHale had a wonderful philosophy which is all for one, but it didn't appear in the field until Coventry did. Bit to remember, the talent is not the determining factor in winning championships, as successful teams require the proper compatibility between the coach and the captain of the team. We might notice that most of the time the captain is not the star player who receives the ball in the last seconds to score the game-winning shots in the basketball, or the football player who scores a penalty kick in the clutch. Most captains are not that kind of ego players, but rather they are players who rely on different characteristics to gain respect and lead their teammates to do their best in order to achieve victory. Most frequently, the captain works in the back of the field. You find him performing clear defensive tasks that are not appreciated enough most of the time, but they are one of the critical factors to the team's performance. In the 1990s, Didier Deschamps was the captain of the France national football team. Deschamps describes his role as a captain, that it's not just about his individual performance, but it's about helping others. In Deschamps' case, this meant finding ways to pass the ball to Zinedine Zidane, the team's star player and the top goal scorer at that time. In this team, Zidane relied on Deschamps, and Deschamps needed Zidane to win the matches. Although Zidane was the star, his influence was much less without the support of his captain, who was dedicated to supporting the team in general and Zidane in particular. This is the explanation for having someone in the team who's always in the back of the field, and this one is the captain, that everyone counts on him for inspiration, motivation, and creation of opportunities. Bit to remember, the captain is not the star of the team, but rather he's a player whose mission is to provide continuous support to his teammates. Of course, you may have watched many Hollywood movies when a leader in one of the scenes gives a motivational speech to motivate the team as a whole. But in reality, most team leaders leave the motivational speeches to the coach or to someone else. As the captain of the France national handball team, Jérôme Fernandez admitted failing miserably in giving speeches to the team. When he attempted to give speeches, it ended up hurting the morale of the team rather than motivating it. Even Ferenc Puskás, the captain of the Hungary national football team during the 1950s, who was an outspoken person, believed that motivational speeches were not the responsibility of the captain. This doesn't mean that leaders don't use motivational words to motivate their colleagues, but rather we see them do this motivation individually. In 2005, the MIT Manpower Laboratory studied different types of teams, including those that worked in hospitals and schools. Participants were registered throughout the day to monitor their conversations and learn all the minute details about their body language and how they speak. The study found that those who fit in with the leadership personality category were having brief and focused conversations with each team member. In the 1998 World Cup final, France won over Brazil by 2 clear goals at the end of the first half. Zinedine Zidane scored both goals, but at the end of the half, he was feeling very tired and was barely standing on his feet in the locker room. At that moment, Deschamps took Zidane and spoke to him in a quiet corner of the locker room, saying, "We can't stop fighting until the final whistle." These words were a strong motivation for Zidane, who was the captain of the team, and in the end, France won the first world title in its history. Bit to remember, when motivating team members, successful leaders don't make public speeches, but rather they tend to talk to their colleagues in private. Thanks for watching. Please follow our social media accounts. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel.